Hey there, today we're going to be taking a look at Valorant running on the AMD Ryzen 3 3200U. Now this is running on the BOSGAME U32 mini PC, the cheapest Ryzen based mini PC you can currently get on Amazon. Decided to take a look at Valorant since it is one of the most popular games in the world that seems to run really well on most systems. Now, what I found while actually testing it is that it was a pretty brutal experience. And I wanted to make it just a separate video for it, specifically because I wanted to talk about specific issues come from just modern computing and in general that are making APUs like this absolutely obsolete in 2023. So let me explain. Valorant itself is actually not a very demanding game. It runs on practically anything. In terms of the GPU requirement, it really doesn't demand very much at all, but the CPU requirements is where things start to become a problem. Now here's why. Valorant has an anti-cheat called Vanguard, and Vanguard is constantly running in the background while you're playing the game. So while the game itself isn't actually very CPU demanding, Vanguard is extremely CPU demanding. So as you see while I'm playing the game right now, our CPU usage is pretty much near 100%, as well as our GPU usage. And what that means is that these frequent stutters that end up leading to these pretty terrible results in the 1% lows really all come down to the fact that the anti-cheat is just extremely aggressive in terms of the amount of CPU power that it needs. Now, in most systems, it's not really going to be a problem, but if you're rocking an older system that only has 4 cores or 2 cores with 4 threads like what we have going on here, that's going to very quickly get eaten up by just the anti-cheat running in the background. And that's a very interesting scenario here. And the thing is that these problems are not going to get any better. In fact, they're getting worse. Windows 10 and Windows 11 do a lot of things in the background that end up eating up a lot of your CPU for a lot of the times just giving you the exact same experience or a worse experience than what we were doing on our computers 10, 15, and even sometimes 20 years ago. The fact that I can be sitting on my desktop doing absolutely nothing, and then out of nowhere, my CPU usage will just spike up to 100% because the system just decided it just needs to run virus scan right now is kind of a noticeable problem on a system that has very few cores, because virus scans actually end up using up a lot of your CPU. They're actually one of the most multi-threaded tasks that you can do on your computer. I know, because sometimes Windows will just run those in the background on my main desktop, and that is a 12-core 3900X. And all 12 cores will be utilized to do this virus scan. Now imagine that on a system with 12 cores, you could still have your CPU utilized that much. Imagine how bad it is having to share the operating system that is already really demanding on just 2 cores with hyperthreading, while also trying to run a game that has an anti-cheat that is really CPU demanding in the background. It is pretty much a recipe for disaster. And so it really seems like the era of dual cores is over at this point, and even 4 cores at this point just are not enough. And it really isn't because things have become more demanding in the sense that we're doing more with our computers, because a lot of the times what people are doing on web browsers today is the same things that people were doing 10 years ago. So the demand in terms of needing more performance isn't really coming from what the users are doing. It's from what the operating system and the software is deciding to do in the background. And it's unfortunate to see, because I have no doubt that if Vanguard was not running in the background and we were just able to play the game without needing to worry about this really heavy anti-cheat, we would actually get some pretty impressive results here. But unfortunately, that's not the reality we live in. And so this chip just ends up falling apart, and it's not even due to the fact that it has a really weak GPU. It is the CPU that is the limiting factor here. It's very interesting to see. It's unfortunate that this game itself does not run on Linux, because I think that if we were able to run this on Linux, we might actually be able to see some improvements in 1% lows. Obviously, they'd still keep Vanguard. Vanguard would still be very CPU intensive in the background, but on Linux, at least we would be able to limit the amount of things that the operating system is doing in the background. But as it stands right now, I really cannot recommend playing this game on this chip. It's unfortunate because the performance is there for it. It's just the fact that Vanguard just needs far too much. But anyways, thank you for watching. I will catch you in the next one.